Hello everyone, and welcome to this presentation that overviews the print output in PrintShop Mail Connect. Now, before actually doing file print, I want to go into some of the details that we need to go through in order to be able to produce the print output. The first one is the available printers. Now, the available printers is essentially a list of printers that we support, and by default, we only show you the generic PDF, but it's very easy for you to add the type of output that you want. So, let's say I want to create PostScript output. I could simply select the generic PostScript level 3. Now, right now, most of these are generic, but we are slowly developing specific printer drivers for different types of printers, and those will be available either on the website or directly inside of the interface that hasn't been decided yet. So, if you want to create PCL, IPDS, AFP, VIPP, free flow, whatever you have, you just check the type here, and then you click OK, and that will give you the printer or the technology when you actually do the output. Now, also, I want to touch a little bit on the medias and master page, just to explain to you a little bit more what they're about. First of all, let's look at the medias. Now, the media is essentially just a configuration for the type of paper that you will be outputting on. So if I look at the characteristics, it's what we call media intents, basically. Inside your template, you tell the template, try to print on coated paper or on textured paper or on specific media types or media colors or media weights. Like all of the things that you see here are what the designer would, let's say, suggest in the output. And all of these can be overwritten inside of the actual print output. So you set them here, and they can be overwritten for different types of printer if one printer doesn't have multiple weight papers, etc. The other thing is the virtual stationery. Virtual stationery, if you have a printer that has pre-printed media, you can set up a PDF as a background here that will appear as a background to your template, but that will not print because the media... We will have a specific animation on this because unfortunately I don't have all the information. So essentially, if the media name matches the name of a tray on your printer that has pre-printed media, and you check that option in the output, it will use that specific paper and put only the data and not the background when it prints. Right, now about master pages. The master page is the actual place where you have all your static elements. So the image, the address, anything that you have here, designs that are not part of your regular data flow would be here. Now you can have more than one master page, and these master pages can have different margins, different backgrounds, different images, and the way that you set these, the way that you set which ones are used, which ones are selected, will be in your section properties. Inside of your print context, you can have more than one section. And each of these sections all have their own finishing option and sheet configuration. Now, the sheet configuration defines what media and master page will be used on a specific position of the sheet. Now, if you're only printing single page letters, for instance, like in the example that I had, the Oasis letter, the only one that you really care about here is the single sheet. And then, as you may have noticed, there's also a duplex setting here, and there's the master page back. So if you're doing duplex printing, then you can select the master page in the front and a master page in the back. Like essentially you have a lot of power in what type of layout you want to see and what the margins are depending on front, back, first page, last page, all of these. You have a lot of power here. So the finishing options that you have here, you have the binding and the hole making here, and you can set these options as you prefer on the printer. Now, if you want to do booklet making, you do need to use a saddle stitch or saddle staple here. Otherwise, it's whatever you want. So you can have adhesive, spine tapping, stitch, like whatever output or finishing your printer supports. And the print section finishing will affect this single section. You could have multiple sections. You could have conditional sections. You're gonna figure out that you can do a lot of different things inside of PrintShop Mail Connect. Okay, now with this extensive pre-introduction to the different things that affect the print output, let's go and take a look at how you can create this output. One thing that you have to understand is that there are two different types of presets that affect the output. The reason we call them presets is that you can create different types of presets depending on the different types of outputs you want to create, and then reuse those presets in different templates. Or of course you can skip the preset creation and just do a whole file print, and then you have all of these different options. The reason I'm going to go in the presets is because there's a better separation on explaining the different parts of it. So let's start by the job creation presets. The job creation is all about configuring, obviously, the job. And what we mean about configuring the job is to group different documents together to filter and sort your record selection, and you can override different finishing options, because the finishing options are dependent on the document and not the type of output you want to create. So I'll check all the options here and we'll go very quickly through them. Now, first off, finishing option, you can decide to override different finishing levels. So the document means all the sections together. So one record outputs one document, and this overrides globally. So it's the same as overriding the print context finishing. And then if you have different sections, you can click on a specific section, and that will override the options for that section. So as you may realize, the job creation depends a little bit on the way your document is created. So very often jobs are So very often a job preset is for a specific template, but you can have multiple templates that have the same number of sections, so it really depends on what you're doing. Now, I'm not going to go through actually overwriting the finishing option. You can check the documentation, just hit F1 in the software to see all the different types of things that you can do, like the different bindings and the different finishing options, to know what they do if you don't already know, because they're self-explanatory if you're in the print business. Let's be clear about that. Now, data filtering. If you're coming from the PrintShop Mail Classic world, you're used to doing filtering in your database input. Here, we do it directly in the output. We're going to filter the documents directly here in the job creation settings. So your filtering options, again, can affect multiple templates. And filtering is super easy. You just add a different rule. So for example, a field rule, which is the one that you're most comfortable with, and then you just define it. So you can select the country field, for example, and set it to a specific country value. Now, the different operators you have here, contain starts with, and with, equals, not equal, bigger and smaller than, if you have numerical values, all of that in the documentation, but pretty straightforward here. And if you combine different filters, then you can either say it's and or for the whole thing. The sorting options, again, very straightforward. You select a field that you want to filter on, and then that'll filter your whole job according to these. The bonus thing here is that you have external sorting capabilities. So if you have a command line sorting system that accepts CSV input and will return a sorted CSV, then you can use it directly here. You simply select all the fields that you want to export and import and all the different settings that you see here, put in the path to your command line sorting system, and you're done. Grouping and splitting options. So grouping and splitting options are useful if you can have a data input that has multiple documents going to the same client. So the first thing you do is sort them, say, by client ID, and then you can say the document set. So one set of documents for the same client will be grouped via a client ID. So if I choose my customer number here, it means I have a document set created for each separate customer number. If you didn't sort them before, it won't really do anything. But if you have sorted them and you have 3, 4, 1,000 invoices for the same client, then it'll be grouped like that. You can select multiple grouping levels, so the document set could be all the documents for a client, and the job segment could be all the documents for a specific mail route. If you have postal rebates, depending on if you have them separated by postal groups, then you can do that. And by the way, I haven't shown barcodes in the previous animation, but you can add barcodes, including USPS, Postnet, IMB, OneCode, all of these nice things. And last thing, metadata option. This is for PDF VT. You can add different fields at different levels because when you select PDF VT output, this is out in the output presets, then those fields are going to be added. So the PDF VT, which is a good data transfer format, you can set it up all here. You just go into the level that you want it, and then you add the fields that you want. Now, when you finish this, you can give it a name and a description, and you're done. You've created a job preset, and then you can use it when we do file print in a few moments. Now, onto the output creation settings. Now, here is where the available printer list we had previously comes into play. The printer model will show all of the available printer models that were selected in the preferences. Here I'll just select generic PDF because I generally just do PDF output. It's easier to show on the screen and to see the result right away. Now the output options are fairly self-explanatory. If you want to save manually and ask for a file name, if you're outputting a batch of PDFs using the separation option, you can select a directory, or with any option you can output directly to an LPRQ or a Windows printer. Each of the different output types will give you different options depending on how you want to output. Now, the different options that you can have in the output. I mentioned the virtual stationery. If you check the option right here, this will prevent the background from being printed, the one that you set in the media properties. Now, I won't go through each of these options because they can be a bit long to explain. Obviously, the documentation is there and we will have individual videos presenting these different options, but I'll just give you a quick overview. Cut and stack in position will basically let you select the final media size, space in between where they have crop marks, bleed margins, the order, all of these options, which you will need to set. I want to show you two of these options a little more in detail, so let me check them, the inserter mark and the separation. So the separation option, I mentioned that you could batch your output into separate PDFs. If you're sending a very large job to a printer, you might want it to start printing out automatically, even though it didn't receive the whole job. So here you can simply say, every 1,000 sheets, cut the job, send it to the printer, and start working on the next batch of 1,000. Or you could say, separate every job segment, because, for example, you have a mail route. Now this relies how you did your grouping options in the job presets. The two are linked together. So if you didn't create any job segment, this will be equivalent to one document set or one document. You can add the slip sheet and you can tell your printer to jog in the output. Next up is inserter options. Now the inserter is basically if you have a folder inserter and you want to be able to drive it with the OMRs, you can select it here. We already have a couple of included hardware configuration files. These are all for Pitney Bowes inserters, but we will be providing some more in the future. So let's say I select one pretty much at random, and then I can select all the options that I want. So this one has selective inserts. I could create new selective inserts depending on specific conditions based on the fields that I created in the job preset. This uses metadata fields, by the way. I can select the 2 print marks on the back, and then I can put a background area with margins so that I ensure that the OMR is always on a white background. It doesn't have any design elements on the back. And the next page is where I want the marks to appear. So that would be the front or the back. If you have it on the back, it'll just show you the 2 red areas. The red areas is the supported camera areas where the folder inserter will be able to see the marks, so you can put it anywhere within that area. Now, depending on the output type or the print technology that you've selected, you may get additional option. In this case, we have PDF. So I can select the type of PDF that I'm going to output. So if I want PDF VT, and then I have metadata fields inside of my job presets, those will be inserted in the PDF VT. And if you have digital signatures and you have your own certificates, you can use them here also. Just add them. Again, documentation for more information. And there we have how to create the job and output presets. To do actual print, you can go in File, Print, and then you can either select the output and job creation presets that you have, or you can click on Advanced, and then you'll have the options from both the job and output presets in a single wizard, but you won't be able to save those because they're all merged. So that's it for the print output in PrintShop Mail Connect. If you have any question, don't hesitate to question below, or use the chat box at the bottom of the Learn website, or contact us in the way that you best see fit. So thanks for watching, and see you in a few clicks.